All right, so it's being transcribed. So it is recording. All right, good.
Yes.
Bravo.
I see the red recording. So
All
it's
right.
working.
So we'll let Temple in. So Ethan, you'll announce that we're recording just to
Okay.
uh,
I can't get the video off.
I wonder if you reboot your computer.
I'm not going to do that.
Uh,
Okay, the thing is, it seems to be opening more than one window.
oh, that's
Hmm.
weird.
Yeah,
Let's,
And if you look at the bottom, you have your video on. It's not, doesn't have a slash through it.
yeah, it has a slash through it.
Oh,
oh,
okay. So if you click on it, maybe
I've done that.
you've done it. Oh, and there's
Yes, I've done
something's
hmm.
going on with your computer.
that. Okay, well, we're gonna just have to go by audio then.
All right. Well,
Well,
some is better than none.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, we can check back and see if you have better luck.
Now
Uh,
my camera is on because I can see myself. I
okay.
know my camera's working. You sure it's not blocked on your end?
Uh,
Steve.
no, it shouldn't be. Ethan came in perfectly fine, and so did Diana.
Hmm. Uh, Temple, I just want to tell you, we are recording now, just so you know.
It's telling me to select another video camera. I only have one video camera. See, I
Hmm.
think they've changed stuff and then it's not working.
Oh,
Yep.
they changed a bunch of stuff. I had a hard time finding the record button. Does
Can
that
you
go?
can you deselect and reselect that video camera?
I don't know how to do that.
Okay, turn it slash turn the camera off.
Well, then it might not work at all.
I
I don't
think
know I don't know how to do any of this stuff.
I think
Okay.
if you click on your window, there's like three little dot buttons in the up in the right hand corner when you
Okay, the
hover.
dots. Okay.
And then if you hit stop video,
Okay, I clicked where the three dots, it says more. It says chat,
okay.
react, share, record, show captions, transcript, docs, whiteboards, apps, missing info, and settings.
Hmm.
Mm,
Not helping us.
yeah, that
Hmm.
Or maybe I think in the bottom left there should be like a mic and then next to it there should be a little video.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me
Yeah, bottom left.
bottom left. Okay, I'm seeing that. I see the video with a slash on it. Usually you click on it and it goes away.
right. And
Yeah.
then you click on it and
So
it
if I
comes
do
back.
stop video.
Hmm.
See, it's giving me one of the problems, it's giving me more than one window to join on. Let's see
Hmm.
what I'm going to try something else here. I'm going to
Yeah,
Okay.
she'll come back.
That's the best test, I think, right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let her come back.
Sometimes when we come out and we come back, it works.
And she doesn't have
Um,
a mic.
now her name begins with a small T, but
And
still.
ah,
Oh, there you are.
Bravo!
and now we have to unmute.
She gotta Temple, you gotta unmute the slash through the mic. It's right next to your video
I
icon.
just did that. All right.
You did it.
Yeah.
You did it.
Perfect.
All
Okay,
right. I,
good.
I opened a
Bravo.
different window and that seemed to work.
Great resilience there, Temple.
All right.
I want to just introduce everyone. We'll get it underway here. Uh, I want to say a brief thank you to Temple for allowing us to record today. Um, we're very grateful for that. This is our eighth session of LCDC Incorporated presents Temple Grandin, and our special guest is Diana Dalmitas Cull, and Stephen Shore. Dr. Stephen Shore is with us today. And we may have Carol Hilliard joining us. She's a certified Miller Method therapist. She's had a family emergency. She might join us on the fly. Um, so we're looking forward to a great session. A little light framework idea would be focusing on transition, that important transition, going to college, and then maybe going out of college to career. And we have plenty of room to talk about other stuff too. But so welcome everyone. I'm Ethan Miller, And away we go.
Well, I'm seeing very big problems with failure to launch. And I'm talking about launching into a job. I just heard one horror story where 3 boys in the same family, all autistic, graduated from college with good grades, failed in the workplace. And the problem is they had not learned how to work when they were in college. Well, the thing I want to emphasize that we need to be doing is kids need to learn how to work when they're in high school. And if you've got a real young kid, it's chores. Then when they're 10 years old, 11 years old, let's have paper route substitutes where maybe you walk the neighbor's dog, where you're working for somebody outside the family. I had lots of work experience. When I was in college, I had 2 career relevant internships, one in a research lab and one as an aide for an autistic kid. So I had learned how to work. And I see a lot of parents have so much emphasis on academics.
Yeah.
They don't think life skills were important. I went to a special school after getting kicked out of 9th grade, and they put me to work running the horse barn, cleaning 9 stalls a day. My mother was very concerned about the academics. And Mr. Patey, the director, said, let her get through her adolescence. She'll make up the academics, which I did. But I learned how to work.
Yeah.
And I was responsible for those horses. There was 9 of them. There was 8 horses and a donkey. And I'm realizing how important that was. And then every week, we'd load up in the big van and we'd go do our laundry at the coin op, and we had little amounts of money that we could spend, very limited amounts of money. You spend it carefully. And when I was doing that, I just thought they were fun trips. But now I'm realizing how important these trips were, because kids are not doing these things. And you always need to have a slow transition, and they're not launching because they never learned any work skills. And I think it's a big problem. And there's been some real success stories when they finally gotten a person out in the field. And then driving, got to take it really slow. I was over a month on back dirt roads before I did any traffic. And a lot of moms says, well, I'm scared to do it. I said, you may be in the middle of the vacant stadium parking lot, 20 minutes a day for a month before you go out on the road. I'm talking about taking it really slow. But let's learn it. It's going to take a lot longer. And this is where we've got the problem. And I'm seeing too many parents kind of that just can't let go. And I remember one parent years ago that when I suggested her teenage boy buy printer paper, she broke down and said, well, I can't let go. No, failure to launch. Right now, on a fully verbal, this is the #1 problem.
You describe a situation very clearly about a student who had never been to the store to buy anything. And if that's where they're starting when they're already in college, you still got to take that step. You still
Well,
have
you still have to take the step. Then you have to do it in college.
That's right.
If they haven't worked in high school, they're going to have to work when they're in college, and maybe take a lighter load
Yeah.
so that there'll be time to work.
You know, what's interesting, you got to remind that it's not that they're stupid. It's not that they're just not prepared for that activity, but it's so relevant. And I just thought it was amazing. You know, you have these adults that are just lacking, you know, they're adults, they're grown bodies, and they're in college, and maybe they're invested and focused on their academics. But if they have to go to buy towels and soap at the school store, it's damn near traumatic, you know, and that's
I don't know. I was shopping when I was extremely young.
yeah.
Now I believe it gives them a choice. All right. Now the accommodation would be, we'll visit Walmart when it's not busy for the first trips. And then you might say, okay, we're going to go grocery shopping at Safeway or some other store, or it's Walmart or Target. You give some limited choice, but we are going to go shopping. When I was 15, I was afraid to go to my aunt's ranch. And if I hadn't gone to my aunt's ranch, I would not have had a career in the cattle industry. It is that simple.
Yeah.
And she gave me a choice. You can get out there, and if you hate it, you can come back in a few days, or you can stay all summer. Not going wasn't the choice. The choices were, if I hated it, I could come back quickly. I loved it, and I stayed all summer.
Yeah, that was the concept of that's the concept of the forced choice.
Mhm.
Do you want to do your math homework first, or you want to do reading first? And I was lucky, like Temple, my parents instilled in me that it was important to work. And I had a paper route. These days, there aren't many paper routes, so we have to find a substitute, such as walking dogs, taking care of pets, house sitting. When it snowed, I'd go out and shovel to earn money. In the summer, I cut lawns. And then for shopping, we were lucky because the grocery market was about 2 blocks away. And so I get a shopping list, I get a certain amount of money, cash, and I'd have to go and shop and bring it back. And sometimes it'd be too much to carry back. So uh, I could borrow the shopping cart if I promised to return it immediately after bringing it home. So we lived close enough to do that. And then when we think about college, my parents had an interesting college transition program, even though it wasn't called that and this type of stuff didn't exist. And it took the form of my parents telling me in high school, go with your older sister. She was about 4 years older than I am. Go with her to university, about 90 miles away, University of Massachusetts, and spend a few days in her dorm room. And that's what I did.
Hmm.
And I found that I loved being at the university. People would talk to me. There were no more bullies. The courses were interesting that she took me to. And then she'd throw me on a bus and I'd ride the bus to get most of the way back home. And my parents would pick me up. We did this a few times. And then naturally, when it came time to go to university, I went to that same university and stayed in the same dorm
Hmm.
and roomed with a friend from uh, from high school, and my sister was off campus, and so she could come and provide support or help if needed during those first few years that I was there.
So she really broke the ice for you in some way, just to get your feet wet in the college experience, and that was a key to your success in a way.
Yeah, yeah, it really was key because I knew
Hmm.
what I was getting into. I was driving. When it was time to go, I drove myself and my friend. My parents didn't go with me, but I had practice, you might say, a rehearsal because my parents would drive my sister and help her move into the dorm. So I knew how the process went, and then I had my friend so we could support each other as needed.
Well, and that's really good. You said it's kind of a gradual transition.
Yeah.
Right.
And they have programs at the airports where
Yeah, they got them at airports now
your
too.
family can like practice going through security
Yeah.
and things like that.
Mhm.
That all makes it less scary. Now, let's say it's not possible to do that. You could look at videos of the airport. You
Right.
can look at
Mhm.
videos of the school, anything to make it less scary. Now, I was kind of afraid to go to my aunt's ranch. And of course, this was, there was no internet or anything back then. She actually had guests there, and there was a little brochure about the ranch.
Hmm.
And just seeing that made it less scary. And we had a phone call with her, before I went. That was also helpful. That increased the interest.
Right.
I'm curious, Temple, did they show you on a map where it was located? Because you're such a visual thinker.
Yeah, that I did see that. Yeah.
You saw it on a map
I
beforehand?
saw that. And when I was a child, I had a wooden map of the United States with wooden plywood cutout states.
Oh, I had one of those too.
with
Different
little
colors. Yeah.
symbols for the things they made in that state.
Mhm.
And so they showed me where it was on that map.
Yeah, that was fun. So, yeah, what's interesting now to think about is that Temple and I were transitioned to college in a sort of prehistoric, primordial way, with parents doing some of the techniques that happen now with the Bridges program, except they didn't have names. Now there's names for these techniques. So maybe Diana, if you could tell us what the Bridges program does for that transition in.
Yeah, no, thank you, Stephen. So we provide academic, social, vocational, and transitional support services to neurodivergent students, primarily those with autism spectrum disorder and ADHD. We have over 120 students in our program now. We keep growing every year. But, what I love that both of you guys are touching upon is that gradual exposure experience, right? For a lot of individuals with autism, you can't just expect them to go into a new environment and just assimilate and acclimate naturally. It takes time, especially with anxiety. So a lot of what we do is we have, for example, for our incoming class, we have a transition program that's 2 weeks where the students come and they can either reside on campus or commute to Delphi, and they take a 3 credit college course. And during that time, it's taught by 2 different professors who have 2 different kinds of learnings and thinking styles. So it helps students gently expose to realize that, in high school, you had one professor for one subject. In college, you have multiple professors. You're going to have different ways to submit assignments. You're going to have different requirements. And having that exposure during that 2 week process is really essential for the students. And it's so beneficial for us as support providers because we also get a glimpse into what it looks like for the student for the day to day, what it looks like when they're happy, what it looks like when they're overwhelmed, what it looks like when, something unexpected happens. For example, the professors, they'll cancel at least one class because in college, classes will be canceled at some point in life.
Interesting. Wow.
And yeah, gently exposing that can be really beneficial. And then we also do internal research during this program. So during the program, they get academic support, they get social support. We have a RA in the residence halls that we check in on because we want to make sure the students who are residing on campus are doing independent living skills. Are they cleaning their rooms? Are they showering? Are they doing laundry? Because some students are so used to having it automatically scaffolded thanks to their parents. And now
Right.
they're on their own and they have to take their medication. They have to show up to class on time. It's a lot of what I call the gray areas.
So when I was, as this trip that we did every week, was laundry was one of the things that we did. And even when I was young and I had a prescription for something, I had to call it in. These were things that I learned. And I didn't even think of these trips that we made into town. I remember the big blue van we used to go in. I just thought they were really fun trips. Now I realize just how important they were for teaching skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's sometimes hard for our students because if they need medication refills, what do you do? At Adelphi, we have the benefit where they can have their doctor call into a local pharmacy and it gets delivered to the health service center here. So students can pick it up here. But again, there's multiple steps you have to take, right? You have to first call your doctor, then you have to make sure the doctor sends it to the pharmacy and it's the right pharmacy.
Right.
And then you have to confirm that health services has it. And, a lot of that executive functioning pieces can sometimes get in the way for students. And as we know, medication compliance is so critical for a lot of individuals to be successful.
Diane,
Well, the other thing that the school, we had a little bit of a money in an account. It was a real small amount of money. And I'd buy things like colorful skeins of yarn to knit decorations for horse halters. And, the amount of money was really small. I mean, a week I could buy a skein of yarn. And it was very limited. And that taught saving.
Mm.
It was a very limited amount of money for just stuff like that. And that's an important thing to teach. All
One
the
of the-
impulse buying that people do and credit card debt. There's a furniture store near when I go to the airport. I hate this place. Every time I drive by this place, I hate them. And a sign up there will say, no payments for 3 years. I'm going, yeah, they're going to be in big trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I just hate that kind of stuff.
they make you a slave to credit.
Right.
And the
So this-
interest.
Yeah, or interest. There's an interesting point here that you both are kind of talking about, but Temple and Stephen, both real go-getters in their way, and they're going for something. But some of the things that I saw working with people on the ASD, on the autism spectrum is that they get very disempowered, so those things that they might risk trying, they get like squashed out, and it stays there. It stays squashed. So that wasn't really a problem, it seems to me, with Temple and Stephen. But Diana, maybe some of you've seen uh, people like this. And so my question is, and all you can answer is, what are the tools for building that take the risk? You have to step off that empowerment. Any thoughts on that, guys?
So,
Oh, I think it starts with a gradual introduction.
Yes, I would agree
So,
with you,
for
Steve.
example, when you talked about laundry, just kind of like Temple, my parents would show me how to do the laundry, and I had fun as a young kid playing what I thought was playing with the machine and doing the laundry. And I thought that was cool. So by the time I got to university, there was the laundry room in the basement, and I had a good idea how to use it.
We had
Uh,
the same thing.
I know of a friend who has an autistic son who went to college, and part of his being neurodivergent was that he absolutely could not differentiate between um, hot and cold.
mm,
Which was the hot knob, which was the cold knob that he had to turn before turning on the machine. So his mother was very smart and dabbed a piece of blue finger polish on the cold faucet, cold whatever it was, pipe, and red on the hot. So now he knew which knob to turn, which one was hot and which one was cold, and he could do his laundry. And sometimes it's a very simple accommodation or an adaptation that can be helpful.
No, that's really a good point. But the other thing I'm seeing is parents that just want to do everything for the kid.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, I can't believe the number of 16-year-olds I've run into that've never gone shopping by themselves.
yeah, we see that a lot, and it kind of creates the sense of learned helplessness,
Mm.
and codependence. And we see it where, a lot of our education is not just the transition for the student, it's more so the transition from the parent. Nowadays, parents are used to having parent portals, calling up school psychologists, knowing what's going on with the student, if they're succeeding or not. And then they get to college where they can't speak to professors, they can't speak to anyone really because of FERPA. And that being in the unknown is very scary. So one of the benefits of Bridges is we get consent to speak to parents. But what I share with parents a lot is consent doesn't mean full disclosure. These students need to choose what they want to share, how they want to navigate, because they need to understand that the next big bridge for them after college is going to be the real world. It's going to be taking accountability. It's going to be navigating, and dealing with natural consequences. And I have some parents where we do a lot of internships, job placements on campus and off campus, because we want to gently expose our students to
Mm.
different kinds of jobs. And sometimes parents will get involved, and I have to call them up and be like, I need you to back up, please.
Yeah.
Do not try to have your student CC you on an email to your employer. The employer's not going to respond, and it's not your jurisdiction really to get involved here. The student needs to learn how to navigate through the conflict. And one of the perks of Bridges is we get consent to speak to employers too, because sometimes students can struggle to acknowledge when problems are arising in the workplace, or hold on to that information because sometimes they're not realizing a pattern that's getting created. I have some students who struggle with executive functioning, and they may show up 5 minutes late to work every day. That's a problem. You're not going to look positively to your boss if you keep showing up late. But some students will say, well, the boss didn't say anything. The boss doesn't have to say anything. You're expected to arrive on time, ready to work. And this is creating a negative impression of yourself. So a lot of what we talk about is, how do you want to be perceived by others?
Well, I would agree. I totally agree with that.
Mm.
The other problem I'm finding just in my class is that just students, when they get into trouble, they don't come to me soon enough. Now, some training I had as a kid, also it's official that Bill Gates is autistic, and he described this in his book. Both of us, when we were little kids, had to sell stuff for charity. That taught you how to talk to people. Then another thing that was done in our generation is we both had to be hosts and hostesses at parents' parties, greeting the guests. He had to do bridge parties. And this taught him how to talk to adults. It was the same thing with me. And my brother, who's not autistic, he hated the parties. But he admitted that it helped him become a senior bank vice president because he could talk to older men. But I have a student right now that, failing a bunch of courses, I wish had come to me earlier in the semester. I would have dropped that course with a very time-consuming lab because she has to work full-time to pay her rent. She shouldn't be taking a full load.
Yeah.
Some of these counselors, their guidance is not all that good. They're just looking at what you need to have for the major. And this student should not have been taking this heavy lab course. Well, now it's like final exams tomorrow. This was last week. I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
This is just a mess. Now, I had another time during COVID, a student, I talked to a student on the phone, and after about 50 minutes, she opened up to me, and she was taking 2 heavy-duty lab classes, organic chemistry and statistics, and she had take care of a sick relative that took up her entire weekend.
Wow.
And I said, you're going to need to drop one of those lab classes. I'm not going to tell you which one to drop, but one of them's got to go. You just have too much on the plate. But it took her a while to open up to me. And this other student, we would have dropped the class in organic chemistry, but I can't do that now. And it's just a gigantic mess. They don't come. This is regular students, and they're worse on this now. And since COVID, they don't talk in class as much. They're getting a little bit better now. We're getting past the worst of the COVID stuff. But here's a student in serious trouble that didn't come forward in the middle of the semester when she should have.
Right. Temple, you have a lot of credibility because of your background and because of everything that you've been through and the success you've had. How do you get a student to open up and build that trust? Because that's for another
I beg them in class. I say, look, if you get a problem, and I'll say this at the beginning of the semester, you come to me. I get a text or a call from students. Those are top priority over anything else. You say, I am in your livestock handling class. I answer that. I can't, obviously, if I'm doing a talk or I'm on a plane, I can't answer it.
Right.
But that will get answered. Like, I'll get off the plane, I'll find a seat and answer it, unless somebody's coming to pick me up. Then I answer it in the car.
So you just tell them you are going to respond. I will respond. Yeah, I
respond. You tell me in a text you're in my class. I will respond as quickly as I possibly can.
Stephen, you do it the same way?
Yeah, it's important to be very open to your students.
I have been.
And to clearly you are. That's something that we need to educate the other faculty on.
Well, the other thing is a lot of the advisors, they'll just tell what you have to do to do a certain major.
Right.
But they'll load up a student who's trying to work a full-time job to pay her rent.
They need to get to know the student.
That's not very good advising. And this happened right now. This is a problem. And I feel as an advising students, we need to be looking at, okay, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Another thing I tell students, okay, let's say you want to be a veterinary technician, try on careers.
Yeah.
I just heard a story just a couple of days ago, a girl that spent 2 years studying for veterinary technology. And when she got in the job, she couldn't deal with the fact that animals died. She's working in a factory now. Well, you don't want to spend 2 years studying for a degree for something you're not going to like. So I'm a big believer, before you invest in that, shadow it. Another student says, I absolutely love this. There are other people on the spectrum. They love being a veterinary tech. They just love it.
Yeah, that's important.
But try on the career, because this is a disaster. She spent 2 years. She couldn't deal with the fact that animals died.
Yeah.
But that's something that you need to find out before you spend 2 years of college studying for that credential.
We had a situation at our school similar to that, One that comes to mind is we had a student who was autistic. I'm sure he's still autistic after graduation, in the School of Social Work.
Mhm.
And he was very smart. He got all A's in his courses, and as I remember him, he was consumed with anxiety. Was he correct? Was he getting an A? Did he do anything wrong?
Yeah.
And he drive his group members nuts in the process. So then a little later on, I had him in a couple of classes of mine, and he did fine. Then a semester or two later, I had his sister in my class, and she said, my brother, he's in trouble. Can he talk to you? And I said, yeah, once my student, always my student. Have him come to my office.
That's great. See.
And what I found out is that it was at the end of his time at school, during his internship for social work, that his rigidity combined with anxiety was giving him a lot of difficulty in many ways. So, for example, when he was interviewing a client, a potential client, doing an intake, that's what it's called. He was doing intake, and then there's always a number of questions that you need to ask. Let's just say it's 10 questions that need to be asked, and here's the order, and he's got them on a sheet of paper. The way these interviews go, they kind of they wind a squiggly path, but eventually you talk through it and you get what you need. But he would insist, no, now we need to ask question number 2. Question number 2 is, and he'd yank the conversation back, and it would cause challenges in getting the intake. Plus the anxiety of his constantly questioning his supervisor, is everything he's doing okay? And so this was a situation where it would have been good if his advisor had caught this early.
Yeah.
And I see this in education too. Often students may be book smart
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
class, but there's some challenge in the social interaction piece, whether it's a teacher being a teacher, or a social worker. It would be great to address a little bit earlier. Anyways, this student eventually did graduate with his degree, and he now does research in a law office, and he's so happy doing that.
It's a
It was a better
successful.
job,
Yeah.
a better
Yeah,
job.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah,
job he
that
needed.
better fitted. But there's trying on careers. Find out
Yes.
what you have to do in the career, and lots of times what someone thinks a career is not what the reality of the career is. But trying on careers, shadowing. Education is getting more and more expensive. We can't be affording to spend time studying for a career you end up not liking. You want to be studying for a career that you are going to like.
That's the best motivator.
Oh, yeah.
You're enjoying it. One of the things that I'm hearing that I think that is really impressive is that a lot of these students will do well academically. That's
Yep.
the safe space to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the real challenges are going to be the simple or the, gradually shadowing a career, gradually learning something, or doing those life skill stuffs. And as I said before, it just amazes me if you don't catch this stuff, or they're not learning in elementary or high school, they still got to learn it in college. It's still, they have to learn those basic things like managing their medications, or knowing which store they're at, or maybe making a doctor's appointment, or maybe knowing where your bank is, or something like that.
Well, the other thing I'm running into, and this was an issue with me, hygiene. There's a scene in the
Hygiene.
HBO movie where my boss slams down the deodorant and says, "You stink, use it." That scene actually happened.
Yeah.
And I wanted that job, so I cleaned it up. And I couldn't stand the gunky roll-ons they had in the 70s. I mean, now you have solid stick. You don't even feel it. You can get unscented solid stick.
Right.
But I just heard just a month or so ago, a guy that lost 4 jobs. One was working in a warehouse because of hygiene.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked in construction, even on a construction site. That's not going to be tolerated.
Right.
That
I
is
think,
something where you're going to have to conform, and there's so much choices now in products you can use.
yeah, it could be bad breath. It could be you're not shaving, your beard, or you just look a mess. It's that idea also of just being a professional, or being, an employee within a group. Um, it's something that an autistic person might discard as unnecessary.
Yes.
Well, no, but it is
It
necessary.
is
And if
necessary.
you don't like shaving, then grow a beard and keep it nicely trimmed.
Right.
Yeah,
Then grow a beard.
exactly. That's
What you do, something that's going to, it's going to look decent. Mine was, they gave the only other choice for deodorant in the 70s was this Arid cream, and I smeared that on. And I liked that better than the roll-on, and I used it because I wanted to have the job. And here's 4 jobs in a row lost. This is recent. This is not.
Yeah.
This is just a month or two ago. I heard about this one. No, there are some things where you do have to conform.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's one of them. Now, you've got to find clothes that are comfortable. And the good news now is that the clothes available now is so much more comfortable. Oh, the stuff that girls had to wear in the 50s. Ugh.
That's awesome. Yeah. The one of the things that I find might be a helping type situation is that you can still keep your individuality. Your
That's
favorite
right.
ball cut, your Western wear,
Yep.
your signature items. You don't have to, it's rings on your fingers, as long as it's not getting in the way of your work.
Pink hair or something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
But
you can do those sort of things. I remember counseling a lady years ago. Her idea of individual was plastic transparent dresses at work, and she liked the day glow colors. And I get, the plastic dresses are going to have to go. How about a black dress
yeah,
with some day glow accessories,
yes,
purse, necklace, something like that?
it's a compromise, but
Because a see-through plastic dress at work,
it's going
no,
to be a problem. It's going to be a problem.
that's going to be a problem.
So, Diana, what's your
Inappropriate. I was on a plane one time, and I had a great big gigantic guy sit down next to me in his underwear.
yeah?
I am not kidding. You went to the airport in your underwear. It wasn't even a t-shirt. It was one of those strap t-shirts. It wasn't a basketball uniform.
Good
It was
God.
underwear. And I'm going, you go to the airport dressed like that? Like, really? And he sat next to me. That was within the last year. I'm going,
I hope he didn't smell.
no, he
Yeah,
didn't.
Okay,
No, he
good.
was clean. And then when he got off the plane, he pulled a hoodie on before he went outside. And I'm going, really? That is just not appropriate.
yeah. So that's people have their own their own idea of what's okay, but in the workplace is different, and even in a college classroom, or
Oh.
there has to be some conformity. You speak, I speak, turn taking. These
Yep.
we've Temple and Stephen and I have talked about turn taking, how you learn that in game playing, and but the transition to college, it is the same. You have to be comfortable saying, "Well, I'm going to speak now. You can speak, and we can disagree."
Yep.
But that, generally speaking, that's what you learn in your childhood. But
The other thing you got to learn in the workplace is
Go ahead.
even in the best workplaces, there'll be some stuff that's wrong. There'll be some, like there might be somebody there you don't like, for example. And the difference between a good workplace and a bad workplace is a good workplace has less of these problems. But there's always going to be some things in this workplace that you just have to tolerate it. And I'll never remember years ago, there were some interns at a Cargill plant, and they were talking to me. I was out there working on center track restrainer installation, and they were complaining about some stupid thing they did in the cooler. And I just said, there's always going to be a certain amount of problems on a job. The good places have less of these problems, and this is a good place, but you still there'll be some dumb stuff that goes on, even in the best places. And you just have to deal with it. And then you can have a place where you can have a truly horrible boss. And this is another dangerous place, people on the spectrum. You can have a person on the spectrum that does just fine with one boss that changed bosses.
Yep.
In fact, I almost lost my Arizona farm arrangement job when the magazine got sold, because unfortunately most of my articles were not bylined. So when the new boss came in, he didn't know what I had done, and I didn't recognize the warning signs that he didn't like me. And Susie, who worked in the putting the ads together, says, Jim doesn't like you. We're going to have to get a big scrapbook together of all your articles. And we did that, and that saved my job. But changing bosses, I've seen that is a very dangerous time, because in my field, okay, if we're going to talk about construction and fixing things, there's two ways where that's worked with somebody on the spectrum. They own their own shop. And they start out with a little shop, and then they're doing big, complicated projects. You go in, you do the project, you leave before you get embroiled in all the politics. The other thing that works is when you're the weird guy in the shop who can fix everything. And I've seen some of those there for years. One of them survived 3 plant owners. He just stayed out in the shop. They had a picnic table in the shop where they ate, and he made sure the plant didn't break. But then there was another guy I worked with, been there for years. The plant was sold. He got reassigned to another plant, and it went extremely badly. But those are the two things, at least on the construction and maintenance side of things. Having your own business is one that works, or you get a niche in a company. You're known as the person who can fix everything, and they just leave you alone because you can fix everything.
I imagine if you get a boss or a new boss that's coming in and really wants to change things, that could be absolutely
a problem.
Yeah.
That could be a problem.
Yeah.
And I went to college last year where they have a guy that works in the maintenance department, and he can fix any scientific equipment.
Wow.
And he's gotten so popular that the different departments, okay, we reserve 10 hours of his time.
Wow.
The physics department's going to get 25 hours of his time.
Wild. Yeah.
I don't know anything about this guy, but he's very highly valued, because it doesn't matter whether it's the refrigeration unit in the meat slab or a mass spectrometer. This guy can fix it.
Yeah, I see. That's very valuable indeed. He's going to have a lot of PhD students running after him to fix things in their labs before too long.
That's exactly what's going on. And they don't know what they're going to do when he leaves. But I've seen the two patterns that seem to work, at least more in the trades kind of stuff, what I'm involved in, is an independent business. You go in, you build the project, you leave.
Yeah.
Or a person who gets a niche in the company for being expert.
Yeah, I've seen that same model in education too, and other areas. And what that suggests is often what happens is the person is brought in by a boss because they recognize their value, their use, and their contributions to the organization, be it education, be it construction, whatever it is, and things are going really well, and the person's doing really well, and the boss understands the individual. Then the boss gets changed, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very dangerous inflection point. And it's important to manage. And another thing that needs to be managed is the office politics, sometimes around that very boss, where people who perhaps don't get along with that boss, but you do, and that can be a whole maelstrom of.
Well, that can be a problem. The other thing is, really controversial subjects, just don't bring them to work.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Just don't bring that stuff to work.
Really.
Right.
Sports and pets, fine. You talk about that all you want.
Sports and
Mhm.
pets.
Because you can have somebody who roots for the opposite team, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's understandable. Sure.
Yeah.
I have a question, another question for everyone, and this is I've seen autistic people and neurotypical people. They do very well with beginning a project type style, beginning, middle, end, on to the next project. They do okay with that. Other autistic people don't like that change to the new project. I love that last project. I want to stay with that last project.
No. You have to finish jobs. I mean, the thing that when I worked for a magazine, one of my first jobs, I worked for a magazine.
Right.
I was a livestock editor. I had to cover the cattle feeders meeting and Arizona stock show, and there was a deadline.
Yeah.
And I had to make up lists of all the champion cattle, and that had to be in by the 15th. I had to get the cattle feeders meeting summarized in by the 15th. They had hard deadlines.
So
I
but
did it.
that was never a problem, really. After you got
No.
the idea, you just on to the next one. Is that did you ever?
Well, I
Yeah.
kind of loved. There were jobs that I used to go back and visit. There
Hmm,
were these were construction projects. Like
right.
my dip vats were one of them, and they were like only 45 minutes away. I go back and visit my job sometimes, but there's other places where the project does have to end, and you have to go on to the next project.
I think also, talking about how you guys mentioned having a boss, you have to have a good relationship with your boss, and your boss has to be transparent. I've seen some students who graduate and they go into the workplace and it's not getting through the interview, it's not the onboarding process, it's the keeping up with the work when deadlines keep changing, when expectations keep changing and they're not clear. And I think that's a hidden barrier for a lot of autistic people in the workplace.
I always asked, like when I worked for the magazine, I was expected to write a certain amount of column inches. And there were certain things that were signed, like the stock show, certain industry meetings I had to go to. Then I had the freedom to do features on some other things, and pick out things that would be interesting. And I kind of knew exactly what was expected. And that worked out for me. But then if something just suddenly changes, that can be a problem. Now we got the first primitive word processor in there when I came in there, and I had to make myself checklists, figure out how to use it. It was really complicated. And then shortly after that, well, I ended up leaving. We got a new editor that decided that his crop stuff was more important than my livestock stuff, and he started cutting down my column inches.
Oh,
And so eventually I quit. But I'd worked there for 6 years, and sometimes this happens. But I got my work done. There's a certain amount of work you just had to do.
yeah. I want to bring it to. I know Temple's on a deadline today, so we're 10 minutes to an hour. Temple, how are you doing on your? I know you.
We start a little bit late. I can go a full hour.
Okay.
But I've also seen stuff happen with a school where they changed principals being a mess. This was real recent. A younger kid doing super well. The teacher would give him time to exercise and do his sensory stuff, doing really well. They got a new principal, and the new principal says, "No, you can't do any of this stuff." So overnight, the school went from wonderful to horrible.
Yeah, that's wild.
This kind of stuff can be really hard. One thing I learned is that sometimes there's more than one way to get something done. Construction's all about outcomes. And if a kid ends up in the basement playing video games, it's a failed project. It's just that simple. This is my metric for judging the effectiveness of high school. Where is a student 10 years after high school? I was looked at as stupid. I still can't do algebra. And half the people I worked with in the shops couldn't do algebra either. But boy, you ought to see their patent portfolio for mechanical stuff. Everyone thought I was completely stupid. I managed to graduate from college, very good grades, because my science teacher got me interested in studying hard to become a scientist. Now I was motivated to study. Still can't do the higher math. I talk all about those problems in my book on visual thinking right there. That got me, that got me motivated. And then those big projects that were shown in the HBO movie, and they were shown after the dipping vat. I was doing those projects right at 10 years after high school. And I think that's a good metric. Where is the student when they graduate from high school 10 years later? I can think of places I don't want them: in the basement playing video games, drugs, alcohol, or dead.
And that is something that
I don't want that kind of an outcome. But hopefully in a career that they like. I've had parents say to me, "Oh, I got my kid into a good job. He bought a house." Okay, that's the kind of stuff I want to hear. And we also have got to work on money management. I heard a very sad story about a girl from a very dysfunctional family doing super well, kind of pulled herself up by the bootstraps, and then this car salesman sold her a brand new car with a horrendous high payment that she should have never have been talked into.
Yeah,
She should have go out. I can think like our dealership here is what they call certified used cars, and they're really good $200 payment. She should have gotten one of those.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because we ran into that too with a client who was sold on a gym membership, and the guy tacked on all this stuff because our client didn't know. We weren't working with him at that time, but didn't know what that meant. And
She got talked into in a brand new car with a very high payment.
Right.
I think she's going to go underwater. And everything was going so well until that happened. And she's another veterinary tech and doing really well in that and loving it.
That hurt her. That hurt her
That
confidence.
really hurt.
Yeah.
And we had quite a long conversation because she came from a totally dysfunctional family. She kind of rose above it. She studied hard at the community college. She got a good job. She still had a couple of classes she needed to do at the community college, doing so well. And now she's saddled with this giant payment.
Yeah, that's terrible. I know.
And this is real recent. This is everything I've told you so far. It's been real recent.
Yeah, I get it.
A lot of
Stephen, go ahead.
people take advantage of autistic people in terms of finances, and I'm not in touch with them anymore. But for a while, I kept in touch with an autistic fellow. I was sort of his mentor, and he kept telling me these stories about having to pay people like $200 or $300 or $500 so that they would be his friend.
Oh no!
So he's basically buying friendships.
Right.
Or if he wanted to date someone, the woman would charge him $500. I think there's a certain name for that. I don't know if it went that far, but still, just the whole premise of the thing. Money management is so important. Fortunately, my
that's
parents
absolutely important. And the
taught me that.
scams. Have you seen the latest motor vehicle department scam? 200 people showed up at the Denver courthouse thinking they were in trouble. I got the same.
Oh, that one, yes.
You know how I figured out it was wrong? Because Outlook.com would not be an address a DMV would use.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And now you couldn't see it when you first looked at the message in the big print, you couldn't see it. But when I clicked on the message and I looked at the fine print, it said Outlook.com. And it was somebody's name at Outlook.com.
It would be a .gov if it's a government.
Yeah, it was Outlook.com. And I go, no. And then some other thing had a phone number from the Philippines because I checked the country code online, and that's how I found out it's from the Philippines. And the web address is wrong. But my default setting is scam until proven otherwise.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
Period.
Good deal.
Scam until proven otherwise.
One of the things that I talked about it before that I thought was one of the perfect tasks for someone who is moving ahead, it's a little bit more advanced. Perfect task is learn how to rent a car. Because I think it's an excellent task because assuming that someone has learned to drive on their car, knows how to, all of a sudden they got to transition to learning how to drive another car, and they have to go to this place and fill out the form and know, do they need insurance? Do they know, or are they covered already? And is there a scam involved in that? Or obviously this person wants to make a good deal for themselves, but it's kind of a good location to test.
Yeah, that'd be good. And you make sure you go to a brand name place.
That's right. Not one of these,
or Avis or Budget or something like that.
Yep. And, we were talking about gradually learning, and I think it's a perfect task because you get into all this officialdom too. You have to sign your name to it. You have to take responsibility for it. You have to check out the car. So there's wonderful opportunities to to train how life works. I mean how things work in the real world.
I
But
can remember my first hotel rooms
yeah, go
that I
ahead,
had
Temple.
to do
Yeah,
myself.
yeah. That must have been kind of an invigorating experience. First time renting a hotel or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the very first ones was to go on. I was living in Arizona at the time, and I was going to visit a big feedlot called Montford's. And I stayed at a Holiday Inn all by myself, and I rented a car, and I was so proud of myself.
Yeah.
And I got to see this big feed yard that I really wanted to see. This was back, 70s, because all the other projects I had done prior to that were all in Arizona and drivable.
Interesting. I think I had a similar experience. First time I took a long road trip, I had to map it out. I had to get they had triptychs back in the
Yep, we had
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I remember using those.
AAA triptychs
Yep,
and
I had those.
map the whole journey and where I might need to get gas and stuff like that. But these type of experiences, you can very easily see some autistic uh, young adults not getting. They don't get them because parents are worried about them or it never occurred to the
Well,
individual
the
to,
thing to do is gradual,
yeah.
because let's go back to driving. That I want to take very gradually, where you spend a long time in a totally safe space, the
Hmm.
middle of a big empty stadium parking lot, backcountry roads, the middle of a field, places that are totally safe. And,
Parking lot. Yeah.
and
Parking lot.
okay, so I just talked to one guy that was a church parking lot. I mean, we
Hmm.
just have to find these places where you can safely practice. So if you stepped on the wrong pedal, it's not going to do anything. But I see a lot of the parents are too scared to do it. I said to one mom, I said, I'm talking about the middle of the stadium parking lot, and you may be there for a month. I'm not talking about going into anything fast here on driving.
Right. Right.
Right.
I was a long time on dirt roads before we did anything with traffic.
That's exactly what my parents did. We'd go to these big parking lot at these behind these big stores or office buildings.
Yes.
The only obstacles you might say were lamp posts, and
Yep.
there I could practice parallel parking, backing
Right.
into a space, no other cars, nothing to crash into. And I do remember one time my parents setting up a couple of trash barrels to practice parallel parking, and one of them got decimated.
Yeah.
Hopefully they were plastic trash cans.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
And so it wouldn't hurt the car if you wrecked one of those.
yeah, or the trash can.
But those are the kind of things that, and that's why I did a book called The Loving Push. We
Mhm.
don't throw kids in the deep end. I'll tell you some jobs we don't do, what I call chaos jobs.
Right.
Crazy busy takeout window. There's chaos at a store during the holidays. Now, those same places might be fine at
Mhm.
less busier times. We
Right.
don't throw them into that kind of a chaos. I call them chaos jobs. Those don't work. I call it throwing them in the deep end of the pool. But what one McDonald's did for a very clever little accommodation was the lady was the cashier. And when the store got busy, she had her wipe tables.
Hmm. Yeah.
Very simple little accommodations that particular McDonald's made, the manager made.
Well,
That's
that's
clever.
good.
Yeah.
My first job was actually a chaos job. It was cleaning tables at a busy restaurant. And I very, very quickly realized this was just not going to work. It was a basket full of sensory violations, too much social interaction, which made me realize I needed to do something else that spoke to my strengths. And at that time, I was into bicycle repair, taking apart bicycles and putting them together. So I got on my bicycle that I built from the ground up, customized bicycle. I was a hardcore bicycle nerd. I rode around to about a dozen bicycle shops that were in the area. Then I'd locate the manager and I'd start nerding into my bicycle with the manager as only a bicycle geek could. And
Yeah.
then after a period of time, I'd ask him for a job. It took about 11 times, but on the 12th time, I got a job fixing bicycles where I could regulate my sensory input. And today I realized that's called the portfolio method of looking for a job. The portfolio was my bicycle. There was none of this hidden curriculum, unspoken rules of shaking hands, how much eye contact, even small talk, because it all started with bicycle nerdery, which is something I could talk about. And then by the time I asked him for a job, the manager knew that I knew my way around a bicycle.
Well, I used to sell jobs. There's my drawings.
Yeah,
I would
similar.
show off my drawings and pictures of jobs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I also wrote about my projects too. And that press pass got me into a whole lot of things. That was one of the best things I ever did, was getting that job. But I had the guts to go up and get the editor's card
Mhm.
because I'd sold candy for charity as a child.
Mm.
And that scene is real in the HBO movie. And I actually did that. And the projects are real. There's also a new movie out about my teaching career called An Open Door, put out by Colorado State University. But well, I'd say to some kids today, do you have the guts to go up and get the card? I did.
I did a somewhat similar thing at the university, and by the time I got to university, I'd plastered the campus with thousands of signs advertising my ability to fix bicycles, and soon I'd have a full dorm room of bicycles that needed to be fixed, and it was a great way to earn money. And then I heard that in New York, this is up in Western Massachusetts at UMass Amherst, in New York, there was this international bicycle show. However, it was only open to bicycle shop managers. So I created a little I created letterhead. I sent them on letterhead, requested
amazing.
four tickets, and I was the manager. Another friend of mine was the chief
That-
mechanic. Somebody
that's
else was the
awesome.
salesman.
That's
Somebody else was,
brilliant.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure what. And we
Love
all
it.
traveled down in my car and went down and just nerded out in this international bicycle show. It was just amazing in New York.
Oh, I love it. That's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff I just love. And it's now time for me to go, but I think that's a great place to end. I'm glad you've recorded this. We have
All
to
right.
put it up online, but that's the
Definitely.
kind of stuff we need to do. You
Yes.
found something you were good at, and making your own stationery. Like one thing I did, I lived in the Oasis apartment building, and I renamed it the Oasis Building Suite 218.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
Your
Right.
office. Yeah.
And there was
Yeah.
no Google Street View to give me away then. But I didn't
Right.
want to have the Oasis apartment as my business address. The Oasis Building, Suite 218.
Yeah, that's great.
And
That's
then
how
I
you
put
do
that
it.
on the stationery.
Yeah.
What I did.
Diana,
Excellent.
Diana, do you have any comments for Temple that you'd like to, or anyone else, since
No, just thank you. This was like so intellectually stimulating and thought-provoking. I think a lot of what we were all talking about today, just a common theme, is helping autistic students and adults get into a sense of uncomfortability
Yep.
gradually. Because I think, unfortunately, a lot of autistic students that I see are too used to being in their comfort zone. Are too
You have
used
to stretch just outside the comfort zone.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when you stretch,
a little bit. Yeah. Not
you
Yeah.
stretch. We don't throw them in the deep end of the pool.
No, exactly.
But we stretch. That's what
Gradually
we
is the
do.
key word.
And when a person gets in the right job, it's just the most wonderful thing.
100%. And I've seen it. I've seen students that, for example, we have one student now, he's a journalism major. He's working for UCOM at Adelphi University. And he's realizing that while he loves interviewing people and writing stories, really what he wants to start doing is the video side, because he's a communications major and he also has skills with video editing. And he did a video for one of his projects and it was amazing. And now they're going to be highlighting it as part of the magazine. And that's really what lights him up. That's his niche. He's just able to put all these scripts together and shoot in such a unique way, and make something really engaging for
and
others.
And that's growth. That's
Yeah.
his growth through your program too. So you should be very proud because
Oh,
that's
thank you.
yeah,
I say
that's
it's all on the students though. Like we
yeah,
guide and we support, but it has to come from the student organically.
yeah.
Yes, I'd agree with that. Well, I'm going to have to get going, and it's been great being here with everybody.
Oh,
Well,
and likewise, it's a great
likewise.
conversation.
I think
Thank
we've
you.
had a good conversation, and I'm glad that we recorded it.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
thank you.
Temple. And
All right, I'm going to leave the meeting, and thank you very much for having me.
yep,
Oh, you're welcome.
we'll be
Pleasure
in
to have
touch, Temple. Thank you.
All right.
Take
Okay.
care.
Goodbye.
Wonderful
Bye.
talking
Take
with
care.
you.
Well,
That was great.
that was cool. Wicked cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. What Temple was talking about was the zone of proximal development. If you
Mhm.
want to be a psychology nerd and talk about Piaget, then
Yes.
that's where we want to put them. Dr. Miller, your dad, had a term for that too. I'm trying to remember what it was.
I started thinking about
Maybe zone of intention or
Zone of intention.
well,
Yeah.
I know it would be high demand, high support, or the demand support matrix, as you
Yeah,
put it.
that's right. Yeah, the high demand, high support. You expect
Yeah.
a lot, but you provide a lot of support
Right.
as
And that
opposed.
came up again and again, no matter
Yeah,
what
it did.
level, if it was a child with severe autism or a youth that was working through, that same matrix applies. It's really, you have to have that, Temple calls it the loving push. I
Right.
still like, I still like the high demand and high support. You got to be there and, but you still have to put them in that area where tested is not the right word, but they're trying.
Yeah.
They
Right.
have to try.
You're learning.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
I
a
think it's
learning
that
zone.
gradual exposure with like a trial experimentation kind of. And
Yeah.
it's something we talk a lot about with our students in Bridges where, what's going to work for one is not going to work for others. So a lot of
Mhm.
it is kind of trying to figure out what works best for you and
Right.
gaining that insight. Because our biggest goal is to teach the students the skills and tools because we want them to go on and graduate and be independent. We still offer alumni coaching once they graduate because a lot of our students do get placed in jobs and they have success, but we have to remember that success is not definitive. Sometimes changes in bosses or changes in companies could result in layoffs or just even realizing from the student side that maybe you're not as content as you thought you would be in the career that you currently are. And just because you're receiving some success doesn't mean you have to continue living your life in that place. That's a part of being an adult, right? People statistically change their career 4 times in their life. And if
Mhm.
you're not content or feeling like you're not getting that value, that energy into your life, then that's where it's okay to explore and see,
Right.
what other options are out there, what other opportunities are out there.
Mhm.
Two words that we sort of uh, narrowed in on and didn't quite nail is that the building of independence and
Right.
self-sustaining.
Yeah.
The idea of self-sustainment. And this, in my view, that's a lot about what it's all about with these kids. It's, the successes and the failures, everyone deals with that.
Yeah.
But it's, do they have the resilience? Are they sustaining themselves? And that, we talked about it, your, physical well-being, grooming and stuff, that's part of it. But is it, your money's coming in? Are you buying things? Are you paying your rent? Sustaining. It's not for people with autism, it's not easy. And
Yeah.
it's not even easy for them to get the concept of that. That's the thing. That concept is for what? My parents aren't going to be here to pick up the slack. I thought it's always like that. It's always been
Yeah.
like that. So,
It's something I talk a lot with our families is I always
yeah,
say, I think the biggest fear of a parent who has a child with different needs, specifically if they're like, have autism or ADHD, is what's going to happen to my child when I'm no longer here.
right.
Right.
And I think that that's a fear for every parent, but it's amplified 100-fold when you
Mhm.
have a child with special needs
I would
because
agree.
there's a lot more hidden barriers, there's a lot more hidden curriculum, as we put it.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of parents, every parent means well. They want to
Yeah.
do what's best for their kid. There's no doubt about that. But I think once they start getting to this place of independence, parents struggle because it's a shift in their identity. Now they're no longer the advocate for their child. Their child's growing up and they have to learn how to self-advocate. Now they're no longer to keep that safety net or create that bubble of protection. And a lot of times what I say is a lot of our students need to face natural consequences. Sometimes you need to fall and learn how to get back up.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's okay if you scrape your knee. It's,
Mhm.
what we try to do is we try to prevent the fall from breaking your knee. That's what Bridges
Right.
does. We try to make it like a little scrape at that.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
We had one interesting conversation. I'll just briefly tell you about this. When we sort of brought it home to parent of our client was having health issues, and we had a kind of redundant conversation like, you're going to have to help a little bit at home because he's sick. He's not. And you slowly see the light bulb go on and say, oh, this is a real life thing.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, and then the behavior shifted. It's like, okay, like I have to prepare dinner or I have to do some more chores and start being a little more helpful and a little less complaints because it's a serious situation. So, um, so that is a pathway towards more independence when they are going to have to be the one to help
Yeah.
at a certain stage, and they're going to have to be the one who can take care of themselves more so that others don't have to.
Yeah.
It's an adulting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big piece.
That's a big
Learning
piece.
how to be, I don't like to use the word independent
Mm,
because only hermits live independently. We're all
right.
interdependent. So
I
maybe
agree with that.
it's
Yeah.
more like appropriately interdependent because there's things that even all of us who roam about the earth and travel and have jobs and all of this, there are still some things that we're not so good at, maybe even embarrassed about not being good at. So
Yeah.
we know to get somebody else to do
But
it.
I love that you touch upon that because I think that's one of the biggest difficulties we see for our incoming students is
Mhm.
sometimes they don't want to accept support because their idea of independence is that concrete thinking, right? I
Right.
want to be independent, so I have to do it all myself. I can't go to people for help. I need to figure it out on my own. And then, you start to flounder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You start to hit, unexpected obstacle or problem and you don't know how to solve it. And I love that you mentioned that, Stephen. I'm going to definitely start adopting that language if that's okay about interdependence. Because,
Oh, use it and wear it out. That's what it's there
Yeah.
for.
yeah, I
That's
definitely
good.
will.
Yeah.
Well, Diana, I hope we can get together at some other point.
Yeah,
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, really
this was
cool.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it made me think a lot. And I'm just, honored to be in the room with so many great minds. Yeah.
Well, we all have room for collaboration, and Miller Method and our coaching experience might it might dovetail well with some of the things you do over at Bridges.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I always say we always want to try to find ways to do things differently because what works for one is not going to work for all. Um,
Right.
so that's why we have to learn how to evolve and adapt, just like our students. When we first started the program, we were only doing academic support, and now we have like all these different layers.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And we keep adding
Yeah.
because it's all dependent on the student's need. Um,
Right.
so I'm always like, I love learning. So I'm always willing to learn, collaborate, figure out how we could build more bridges. Haha. Sorry,
Yeah.
a good bridges pun.
No, you're not. It was a good one.
I really like how, it really came across. Your part of your classroom is outside the classroom. That's for sure.
Yeah,
It's
certainly.
really that comes through loud and clear. So, um, so I will be in email touch with both of you, and
Perfect.
Sounds good. And I'll be seeing you, Diana, on campus. And
Yes.
we got to whatever became of that presentation that got postponed? Is there a read at
The
Adelphi?
Indigo one? Oh no, you mean the Delphi one?
Yeah,
I don't think they're gonna do it. I think they postponed the conference. So
maybe it's next year.
I think we should just reach out to FCP and do one on ourselves.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Let's like not wait for a conference. Let's just
Yeah,
propose
and then if
it.
another conference comes, we'll do an adapted version of it.
Yeah, let's just do it.
All right, let's rock it. Let's plan that.
so you guys are off and running. All right, Diana, very nice to meet you, and thank
So
you for
wonderful
joining.
meeting you
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Have a
really.
wonderful day, guys.
Thanks,
Yeah.
you too.
Take care. Steve and I will talk to you soon.
All right, copy and Roger that. I'm going to sign out because then it will start processing the video and
Perfect.
send
Yeah.
it to me. I'll call you on the phone.
Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.
Over and out.